In the dimming light of a rainy autumn evening in a forgotten corner of Chicago, where the skyscraper's glow barely pierced the haze of exhaust and regret, 12-year-old Mia Ramirez knelt on the cracked sidewalk, her threadbare coat doing little to shield her from the chill. She had just finished her after-school shift at the corner bodega, stacking cans for pennies that barely covered the bus fare home, when she heard it. A sob so raw and heartbroken it cut through the city's indifferent hum like a siren's wail. There, huddled against a graffiti-scarred lamppost, was a boy no older than 8, his designer jacket soaked and muddied, tears carving rivers down his freckled cheeks. He clutched a stuffed elephant, its once vibrant ears now limp and defeated, as if the toy itself wept for him. Mia's heart, already heavy from the weight of her own world, a single mom battling cancer, a fridge that echoed with emptiness, twisted in recognition. She'd been that lost child once, wandering these streets after her father vanished like smoke. Without a second thought, she shrugged off her coat and draped it over his shivering shoulders. "Hey, little guy," she whispered, her voice a gentle anchor in the storm. "It's okay. You're not alone anymore." The boy, whose name she would learn was Theo, looked up at her with eyes the color of storm clouds, wide with a mix of terror and fragile trust. I got lost," he stammered, his words tumbling out in hiccuping bursts. "My driver. He turned and I ran after the park, but—" Mia didn't press for details. Instead, she scooped him into her arms, the weight of him both burdensome and achingly familiar, and led him toward her family's cramped apartment 3 blocks away. The rain pattered on like an uninvited guest as they walked, her sneakers squelching in puddles that mirrored the boy's tear-streaked face. To distract him, Mia spun stories from the scraps of her imagination. Tales of elephants that could fly over the loop, carrying lost kids to secret candy kingdoms hidden in the clouds. Theo's sobs softened into sniffles, then giggles that bubbled up like unexpected sunlight. By the time they reached the sagging stoop of her building, with its peeling paint and flickering hallway bulb, he was clinging to her hand as if she were the only tether to his unraveling world. Inside, the apartment was a testament to quiet endurance. A sagging couch patched with duct tape, a kitchen table scarred from years of makeshift meals, and the faint scent of chamomile tea masking the sharper tang of worry. Mia's mother, Elena, lay propped on pillows in the living room, her chemo-weakened frame dwarfed by the second-hand recliner. Despite the pallor etching lines on her face, Elena's eyes lit with a fierce maternal warmth as Mia explained the situation in hushed tones. "Mia, what have you brought home now?" she teased softly, though her gaze held no judgment. Only the weary pride of a woman who'd taught her daughter that kindness was the one currency that never devalued. Theo, still clutching his elephant, eyed the room warily, but Mia coaxed him onto the couch with a bowl of instant ramen, doctored with a sprinkle of cheese from their dwindling stash, and a threadbare blanket that had once been her own. As the clock ticked past 8, Mia sat cross-legged on the threadbare carpet, braiding wildflowers she'd pressed from a community garden into a crown for his toy. "See? Now Mr. Elephant's a king," she said, placing it atop the plush head. Theo's lower lip trembled, not from fear this time, but from the overwhelming ache of being seen. "No one's ever stayed with me like this," he murmured, his small hand finding hers. In that moment, Mia realized something profound. Poverty wasn't just empty pockets. It was the isolation of being invisible, and in comforting this boy, she felt for the first time truly rich. Night deepened, the city's distant sirens a lullaby of survival, when Mia's phone buzzed, a cheap flip model that barely held a charge. It was the bodega owner, checking if she'd made it home safe. She assured him she had, then turned back to Theo, now dozing with his head on her lap, his breaths evening out like a storm finally breaking. Elena watched from her chair, her fingers tracing the IV port on her arm, and mouthed a silent thank you to her daughter. Mia nodded, but inside doubt flickered. What if his family never came? What if social services swept in, labeling her a meddler? She'd seen it happen to neighbors, good intentions twisted into suspicion. Yet as she stroked Theo's damp curls, a quiet resolve settled over her. Humanity wasn't about grand gestures or spotless records. It was these stolen hours, these threads of connection woven in the dark. She didn't know that across town, in a penthouse fortress of glass and steel overlooking Lake Michigan, a frantic search was unfolding. Theo's father, Alexander Hale, the reclusive billionaire behind Hale Tech, The empire that powered half the world's smart devices paced his marble-floored office, his usual iron composure fracturing like thin ice. Security feeds looped endlessly. Theo slipping from the chauffeured limo during a playground stop, chasing a stray balloon into the wind-swept streets. "Find him!" Alexander had barked into his earpiece, his voice a whip crack that mobilized a private army. But beneath the command lurked a father's terror, sharpened by the ghosts of his own childhood, abandoned in foster homes, clawing his way from nothing to everything, only to realize wealth couldn't buy presence. Hours blurred into a vigil. Mia dozed fitfully, her dreams a collage of playgrounds and empty hospital bills until a low rumble shattered the night's fragile peace. It started as a distant growl, then swelled into a symphony of engines, sleek, predatory roars that vibrated through the thin walls like thunder on the horizon. Mia jolted awake, Theo stirring beside her as headlights pierced the curtains like accusatory fingers. She peered through the grimy window and froze. A convoy unlike anything her Southside block had ever witnessed. Dozens of supercars, Ferraris gleaming crimson under sodium lamps, Lamborghinis crouched like panthers in matte black, Porsches and McLarens arrayed in a phalanx of opulent fury, idled in a serpentine line that choked the narrow street. Valets in crisp uniforms leaped out, scanners beeping as they triangulated Theo's phone signal, while helicopters whirred overhead, their spotlights carving the rain into diamonds. Neighbors spilled onto fire escapes, whispering in awe and envy, phones raised like talismans against the surreal invasion. The lead car, a custom Rolls-Royce Phantom with windows tinted to secrecy, disgorged a man who moved like a storm contained in a tailored suit. Alexander Hale, silver-templed, sharp-jawed, his face a mask of relentless ambition, strode up the stoop, flanked by security that parted the gawking crowd like biblical waters. He pounded on the door, not with entitlement but with the raw desperation of a man who'd bartered his soul for success and found it hollow. Elena, summoning strength from some untapped well, rose unsteadily to answer. "He's here," she said simply, stepping aside to reveal Theo, rubbing sleep from his eyes, Mia hovering protectively behind him like a sentinel. Time suspended. Alexander's gaze locked on his son, and for a heartbeat the billionaire was just a father, knees buckling as he swept Theo into an embrace that trembled with unspoken apologies. "I'm so sorry," he choked, the words foreign on his tongue, honed by boardrooms but unused in the quiet chambers of home. Then his eyes found Mia, standing small and defiant in her oversized pajamas, her dark hair a wild halo from the night's exertions. Theo wriggled free, pointing with beaming pride. "Daddy, this is Mia. She saved me. She made Mr. Elephant a king." Alexander straightened, appraising her not as a curiosity, but as the architect of his miracle. In her he saw echoes of his younger self, the grit, the grace under fire, and something cracked open in his armored heart. A profound realization washed over him. All the algorithms and acquisitions in the world couldn't compute the variable of simple human decency. He knelt to Mia's level, his voice steady but laced with gravel. "You didn't just find my son tonight. You reminded me what I've lost chasing shadows." He glanced at Elena, noting the medical bracelet on her wrist, the sparse room that spoke volumes. No pity colored his tone, only resolve. "Let me help. Not as repayment, but because you deserve a fighting chance." What followed was a whirlwind that reshaped their world, not in extravagance, but in quiet restoration. By dawn, the convoy had dispersed, but Alexander's team remained. A world-class oncologist consulting with Elena over tea, financial advisors mapping a path to erase debts that had haunted the Ramirez family like specters. Mia's bodega shifts ended. Instead, scholarships bloomed for her dreams of becoming a storyteller, turning her tales into books that could heal fractured hearts. Theo, no longer a fleeting visitor, became a fixture. Playdates in the apartment evolving into family dinners where supercars idled curbside like faithful steeds, their engines humming approval. Alexander, transformed, traded some boardroom battles for park benches, learning the art of presence from a girl who'd mastered it in poverty's forge.